Hello, and thank you so much for joining me on my stream. And today I'm going to talk about how do you do animations. So basically, I'm just going to talk about the process, okay? So about the whole process of an animation. Well, not the whole process. What I'll be covering today is, as I was promising, um, animation process, beginner, intermediate level, and introduction to animation. Also, I'll be covering how to think like an animator. And I'll talk about the next most requested programs: To Boom Harmony, Adobe Animate, Flip a Clip. In the end of this stream, I'll make a Q&A, so you should get your questions ready. But I won't be answering to something off topic. So please get more close to the topic, okay? So right now I will be only talking about animation, and please do not request me to draw you, to go to your channel or something like this. This stream isn't about just talking, right? This is about me telling you how to do animation. Well, since the first stream, I was doing it in the same format. Well, at least I think I was. It actually got a lot of likes, so I think that you guys like this type of content, so we should move on. So, right now, let's talk about something that we should talk about firstly, right? So, it's a warm-up. So what should you do for the warm-up? So my steps that I never use, actually, because I used them long ago, and they are actually helping. So what should you do first? It's just warm up. It's about practicing your line art, right? Also, you have to know how to draw, because without this skill, it will be very challenging for you to animate, since you have to get your character look the same in each scene if you're going for a 2D animation, of course, a traditional style like I do. It's gonna be pretty challenging. Also, sometimes your lines will be jumping back and forth, and you probably don't want that, so you need to practice drawing at first, right? So, once you've done that, you have to right now do a little warm up. Every artist do that. So just try drawing straight lines and circles until they look good. You can even try drawing an ellipse. I'm not sure it will be perfect the first time you try, but each time you do it, you're gonna get better and better at it. So yeah, you can cross some of the shapes that aren't looking good. So, and the next step of warm-up is basically drawing a stickman or any other character. You can start with a circle. Or, let's say a stickman. So, it's not super advanced, actually. You can try doing this with a character that you have, but it's gonna be a little bit more challenging. Also, I suggest you using a normal brush without any corrections. You can use a thick brush. It's gonna be much easier for you to trace. So this thing is called rotoscoping. It's not really like rotoscoping in animation. It's more like just trying to keep your character look the same in each frame. So it's a very important skill, so that your hand is remembering those exact steps, and you will be actually better drawing all the time, so just keep that in mind. It actually helps you. It's like drawing circles and lines. You just have to, all you have to do is just trace a stickman or any other shape as much as you can on each frame, and then after that you can play back your animation and see if there are any changes to your character. Don't forget to use onion skin, by the way, and yep. So he should look the same in each frame, so he shouldn't really change himself, or else it's gonna be bad. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect at first. You'll master it once you're doing it all the time, but it's just like my methods, so I don't really use those methods all the time, but I would recommend you doing that It's really helping. So, okay, now let's talk about steps. What does the animator think when he starts an animation? So, he thinks about how should he structure his animation. What is it gonna be? Is it gonna be a music video, or is it gonna be a cartoon show? Is it gonna be an episode, or is it gonna be something? So he should plan the steps. He should write a script. I mean, if you have a good memory of what you're doing, right, you can just not do that. But I would suggest you writing the script if it comes to some episodes or something particular where it covers some monologues, because without that, you're gonna leave yourself with a lot of retakes of some particular scene, and you probably don't want that. So first, you have to think about what you're doing, and when you're completely done with thinking, you're motivated, right? You have the whole idea planned from beginning to the end. You can now do the first step. What is the first step? So it depends on what you're doing. If you're making a music video, then you already have music. So you can already start making the next step I'm gonna talk about later. But if you're making something like a Vine, let's say anything that covers a monologue or something original, with voices, with different sounds, like it's not something like a music video, right? So you have to cover up steps like firstly you have to do the audio, actually, because without audio your timing will be messed up and all this stuff, and it's gonna be pretty tough for you to revoice act the whole stuff you drew, or it can be timed not as good as you might want. So first you do the sound. But if you're making something like a traditional animation on paper, then, well, sound comes in the last, unfortunately. But you have to have a very good sense of timing and a very good sense of reality to do that. So, yep. Let's also talk about... Oh, okay, so you've done the audio, right? So if you're making a animated, like a cartoon, right? So you have to make a voice acting. You have to make some voice acting, and after that you can now... after that you can just basically place your voice acting in your next step. Or you can also add music, so it can describe the mood of your animation more precise. Yeah, it's gonna definitely help you, and that's a very important step. So after that, you can move to another step, which is called storyboarding. Storyboarding is basically like a comic, but it just has sound with it, and it's more like an animation. Yeah, actually, you can do a storyboard. You can do an animatic. Basically, they're the same thing, but the animatic is just more complicated than the storyboard in terms of action, in terms of complexity. But none of them are too complex, by the way. So yeah, don't really get into that. You can do whatever you want, and you can still call an animatic a storyboard. It's not going to be that much of a problem or that much of a difference. You can draw a storyboard anywhere you want. It can be on paper, but you just have to. If you have some sound, well, then paper comes in the last. If you're making it on paper, you can just sketch out some monologues, so you can think of what characters are gonna be saying, right? Or for example, you just don't have time to draw this, so you take this with yourself to a cafe or to work or wherever you want to go, and then paper comes in handy. But when you're working with sound, I'm sorry for my pronunciation stuff. I'm just a little tired today. So, but when you use sound, you don't use paper. Just don't use it unless you use it as a script. Because how are you going to put sound and music on paper? Like, just tell me that. Okay, so you open a storyboard program, or it can be any program, actually. Well, it has to support frame flipping, like this thing. I mean, if you understand what I'm talking about, it can be even PowerPoint. I tell you, I'm not even joking right now. But I don't know if PowerPoint supports audio importing. So yeah, just be careful with that. You can even use FlipaClip, or you can even use other programs for this. You don't really have to download any specific storyboard software because it's gonna cost you much more than you might expect. But if you know the ways, then you can download both programs, and it's gonna make your life much easier than that. So, storyboard is basically just a comic. It's a very, very, very rough sketch of your animation. You can just basically draw stickman and then assign the names to them like that. Or you can just draw your characters very roughly. You can just put a very rough sketch to your characters like this, and so you understand what character is it, what does it perform. But what should be noticed in this particular thing, so what you should actually pay attention to, is line of action, is expressiveness of your character, and all in all of that stuff. So your character doesn't have to be like this, unless you're doing something like those YouTube talk shows, or but when you're actually making an animation, and bleh, when you're actually making an animation, I'm sorry, it's very hard for me to speak right now. It's very important that you put in the dynamism, shape, form, and poses to your character. Because when you're going to animate your characters performing some hard actions that require some perspective and some poses, you're definitely gonna suck. So you should do this at first, like this. And you can also just draw a very rough sketch of your character, but just make sure that you can read the action, the pose clear, because sometimes this can be really hard to animate a character without even knowing the correct pose. So what happens next is that when you're animating, right? So you're storyboarding, right? So you have to make your characters in there, like you have to add a lot of expressions. You have to add a lot of dynamism, a lot of poses, and you can go as rough as you want. You just need to make sure that it's very clear for you, because after that, when you're gonna do this, you're gonna add this animation and this storyboard. I'm sorry, or animatic, call it whatever you want. You can add it to your animation software, and after that, you're gonna be tracing on top of it. Well, not really tracing, but similar to that. You're gonna be drawing on top of that thing, right? So that was the steps of animation. Actually, there is a last step, which is not really about animation, but it can be about animation as well. But it's editing. It's just color grading, visual effects. It's additional sound design, basically what you want. Just to make your product, it just makes your product finished, so you're not ashamed of putting it to the web, so people can actually watch it and be pleased with your work. About editing, I'm gonna talk I'm gonna talk about editing like a little later, maybe even more than later, because editing is a very, very complicated thing. And you have to understand that, because editing requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of knowledge, and it requires a lot of stuff. I will be talking about it, but I'm not gonna cover all of the steps, and I'm not gonna talk about it today. I'm gonna set the date later. So for those who are interested in editing, you can come to my stream. I'm also planning to do a course, which is gonna be not free, of course, but it's gonna have a lot of stuff in it that everybody should know, and everybody was asking me about that stuff. but I'm not really gonna cover this in my YouTube streams because, well, this information, it should be, well, I don't feel like this information should be free. And also, I will be discussing some really, really professional and harsh stuff that I don't put in my YouTube videos. There's a reason why. You're gonna know about the reason after a lot of months and years, if I will be progressive on my YouTube channel. So, yep. Let's start with animation. Once you're done with warming up, once you're done with understanding the stages, right? There is a thing that you should do now. Look, so, okay, all beginners, listen here. It's a very important thing for you to know right now. So, a lot of people make a lot of mistakes. They don't really read the animation books. They don't really watch tutorials. And they always miss that important thing in their animation career, if I can call it that way. So, what should you know first is like, aka the basicest thing of all basics, like the king of basics. 12 principles of animation. If you don't know that, I don't know how to even make animations. Like, come on, man. This is the thing that everybody should know. So, let's cover this today. Because I know they may be some beginners watching me right now. They'd be like, "What? What is 12 principles of animation?" Or, "How is your animation so smooth? Like, tell me about that." Everything is really simple. Just you have to understand 12 principles of animation, and just you have to draw clean. And after that, everything comes in handy. Everything lies perfectly together. And after that, you form. After that, you have a nice animation, and you can post it on the web, and a lot of people will actually like it. So, yep. Okay, enough of talking. Let's get to the point. So, what is squash and stretch? So, squash and stretch has its own purpose, and the purpose is to give a sense of weight and flexibility to drawn or computer animated objects. It can be applied to simple objects like bouncy ball, or more complex constructions like musculature of a human face, for example. But it's really complicated. And taken to an extreme, a figure stretched or squashed to an exaggerated degree can have a comical effect. What is a comical effect? Well, I think you know this already, but for somebody who doesn't know what's that, it's basically something like it's called exaggeration. In realistic animation, however, the most important aspect of this principle is that object's volume does not change, and that's the most, that's the biggest problem of all beginner animations. Animators, they don't apply volume rules to their objects while making squash and stretch, and the animation just looks weird. Okay, I'm roasting some stuff right now. I'm not trying to make you feel shitty or something like this. I'm just telling the truth. So you guys can take this criticism and form it into something better. Okay? I hope you don't get mad at me for telling the truth. So, if the length of a ball stretched vertically, right? So we have a ball, right? So when we stretch the ball vertically, that's what some people do. Or this. Like, come on, man, why? No. Dude. Ball doesn't have an infinite forming volume. It just can't be stretched like that. So you have to understand that if the ball is stretched vertically, its width, well, it can be in 3 dimensions or in 2. Also, its depth needs to contract. So yeah, it's just basically, if you're stretching the ball vertically, the width of the ball should get narrower. So, hope you understand what I mean. There are also some limits. For example, if you stretch it too much, then it can even turn into a flat line like this. So we're not really gonna push it to the limit, so we're just gonna make it like this. Right? So It shouldn't be that exaggerated. Yep. So, also when you're squashing the ball, the same things apply, but it's just in different axes. So, I hope you understand that. Also, squash and stretch can be used as to create the sense of fast motion, right? So, for example, your ball is moving downwards and it moves at a very high speed, and you want to show that. So you have to understand that there are some forces in our atmosphere that can lead to distortion. It can be also air, so it can be also gravity. It can be also air, it can be all this stuff, it can be fumes, it can be gases, it can be everything. These stuff actually can lead to distortions since they make it a little bit more challenging for the ball to go at a high speed. So the ball will get eventually stretched at some parts because of the gravity that has a little bit of a parallax. It's gonna push the ball a little bit there or even there. It depends on the speed. So the faster the ball goes, the more it's stretched because of the gravity parallax. Okay, I'm getting into physics. I'm sorry, but I hope you understand that your volume of the object should be proportionate to width or height. It depends on what you're doing. If you're stretching it or squashing it. So if you're squashing it, then the height should be equivalent to the width, which is this. And if you're stretching the ball, it should get narrower, like this. So yeah, this was squash and stretch. Also, squash and stretch can be used for stuff like expressions. For example, you have a face in here, right? So this is a face. And for example, you want to make him look frightened. Okay, okay, let's do this. And so before he has like his face going like that, like whoa, what's going on? You have to kind of squash him first. So this gives some anticipation, I think. And after that, when he squashes, you can also you have to also understand that when this guy squashes, all the muscles in his face. Okay, I know this is really weird that I'm talking about this right now about anatomy, but the muscles in his face and his facial structure should be also stretched because it's also getting affected. So look, he squashes and then he stretches. Okay, you also have to enable double onion skin, so you can use this as a rotoscoping thing, so you don't really miss anything while returning to its original position. So here it is. Oh yeah, also look at the bottom line. It doesn't have to shift anywhere. Just make sure that happens. And also you have to understand that the volume here, the space, I'm sorry, the space here and the space here, it should be equal, or else your character is gonna seem like he's moving in some directions. Also, you can check for any imperfections, let's call it that way, and just correct a little bit. So we're not really getting into that, okay? So you can see how expressive is the character right now. So instead of just going from A to B, you can more complex like this. Oh yeah, when the character is squashing, you have to make sure that your character gets narrower as well. Okay, that was too much, I think. I think it's here and here, somewhere in the middle, like that. And, yeah, okay, remember the muscles also get affected. Yeah, you can add as many exaggeration as you want. And, yep, look at his final pose in here. You can trace it a little bit, or you can also copy this if you're using vectors, which is very, very, very handy. And now you can draw on top of that, and there we go. It's very easy now, isn't it? You can also add a little bit more of a squash in the end to make this sort of a jello feeling to your character. So to do that, you can also copy this object and place it in here. And now what you can do is you can squash him like that. Okay, don't forget about the anchor point. Do that. Do that. Somewhere like this. And don't forget about that. Okay, he also gets down a little bit like that. Okay, so now our character is being much more expressive than he was before. So I'm not really going to get into frame by frame right now, like just making this animation complete. I'm just gonna show you the example. Right, so this is what you're gonna get. I think that your brain is smart enough to, in between, in the frames. I mean, you can already sense the smoothness of this animation. Smoothness of this animation. So what we have in here next is anticipation. Anticipation is used to prepare the audience for an action and to make the action appear more realistic. Or let's take for an example, like a dancer jumping off the floor. So what does he have to do first, right? So he has to bend his knees first, right? Before making the jump, or else he's not gonna jump that high, right? So it's like a spring. To make it jump high, you have to first squash it. Oh yeah, by the way, look at this. And then it's gonna release like this, and then it's gonna go whoosh super fast. Or if you're not gonna do anything with it, like if you're gonna just push it like this, it's gonna jump not that high. Right? I think you know what I'm talking about. So the same thing here is with characters. So this is called anticipation. So for example, here we have a dancer. Let's draw that. So that turned out pretty beautiful. So they have to they have to bend their knees first, right? So okay, don't forget about the line of action. So we have to draw the line of action first. And we can also set some poses like that to make it look more dynamic than it already is, right? It looks pretty cool now. Why did I do that? Okay, wait. That is a sketch. I don't really care about that. So he has to bend his knees first. Okay, we can also draw some dynamism in our shapes right now. Don't forget about the body proportions. This is very necessary. And so he has to bend his knees first. Okay, just make sure everything is equal. After setting off the jump, right? So then he or they or she or they jump in the air. You can also stretch them like that. Okay, I really would like to animate this later, but we have to get to the tutorial. So yeah, that's what anticipation is. You can also use some lines like that to express the gratefulness of this character. I have no idea what I'm even doing right now. But something like this should happen. Or also, don't forget about this. Just to be a little bit more above like that. Oh, yeah, also, the most important rule of all in here, I'm going to talk about this right now. What's the most important rule I wanted to tell you about is that, so if you're, so you have, you should double. Okay, let's call this intros and outros. So the anticipation is gonna be the intro. The final action is gonna be the outro. Okay, so you have to double. You have to multiply your intro by 2 to make your. You have to multiply your intro by 2 to make the outro seem more powerful and believable. Believable compared to the anticipation. let's say that. So, yep. Or else our action is not gonna be as powerful as we want it to be, probably. That's what we have. Boom. Oh, wait. Let's do this. Boom. So, you can see that. That's actually working. So, now let's talk about the next thing. It's called staging. Basically, staging is used to direct the audience's attention and make it clear of what is of greatest importance of the in a scene. Like, for example, you have you have to make the audience understand what is the most important thing in the scene. Or if you have some different actions going on, you can also highlight your character by putting it in the center, or by making your character do something completely different to what others do. So, for example, everybody's walking and this guy is just standing. Or, for example, if you have something interacting with the character or similar to the to what the character is doing, you have to set the numbers, or set the actual scenes of different stuff that's gonna happen. So, for example, you have to understand what's gonna happen first, what's gonna happen second, what's gonna happen third, fourth, fifth, and so it goes on. So, for example, this guy walks in from Alan Becker's tutorial. Here's an example. So this guy walks in, and there's a banana peel, and he's like, yo, he slips, and after that he falls on the ground. Then there's people who made this up appear, and here they're like, whoa, you're a loser. And everybody starts laughing. So you have a sense of what is going on. You have directed focus. So first this, then the banana peel, then the action, then those guys behind, and then the character's reaction again, who is very sad. So this is what is called staging, right? So now let's go to the straight-ahead post pose, my favorite one. So this is the most common thing that everybody does. Okay, beginner animators, listen here carefully. Beginners, you have to listen right now, because this is gonna help you so much. You will be really pleased and grateful for what I'm gonna tell you right now. So look, what is straight ahead? It's basically where you draw a character. First frame, then second frame, straight after that, and then you just go like that. But after you did this, and you made something really big, like a character is going here, 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 here. He's doing a lot of actions, and then when he has done all of his actions, he suddenly becomes smaller. So here's your first frame, here's your second frame, or here's your second frame. You're like, what the heck just happened? I was just drawing him like this. Like, why is he doubled his size? So, that's guys called straight ahead. You don't use straight ahead to actually make animations like big actions. Of course, slow actions. Never do that. Never use straight ahead for slow actions. What you should do is you should use boost to pose. Well, actually, you can use straight ahead for some unpredictable motion, like fire, like flame. It doesn't really have its own shape. It doesn't really have a precise shape. It can go off the borders, and it can be really wonky sometimes, and you just don't really mess with it that much. Yeah, you can just go as much as you want with it, basically. And it's not gonna look bad. Like, you can try it yourself. You can't make a bad fire. I mean, you can do that, but everybody has their own style, you know? You can experiment with it as much as you want. You're not gonna fail it, I tell you. Don't try to prove me wrong right now. So, yeah. Fire can be ruined, I tell you. So, let's get straight to the point. Beginners, listen carefully. Pose to pose. Remember, pose to pose. No straight ahead from now. For big, slow actions with real characters. Never. Or else you're just gonna distort your character completely. So, what is pose to pose? It's basically when you have a keyframe. So, for example, your character is here, right? And you want to... Okay, well, let me just use this brush. I can't. It takes so much time for me. I want to explain everything in seconds. Come on. There we go. Oh, finally, I can draw pretty fast. So, I have a character. So, here it comes. So, what do you want to do? Is you want to make your character go here, right? You want your character to be somewhere here. And you want this character to be looking for something. Okay, that's what I want, okay? You can do anything you want. So, this is your last frame, I think. Or this is your final destination of what your character is going to do. And you have to look at the size of the head. And so, what is really cool about this is that your character is always going to be the same size. No matter what. Also, please, if you can, add another layer and go ahead and close, and then you put a just use a ruler to create the ground that your character is standing on, or else you're gonna leave yourself with something really bad. So here's your ground. You shouldn't go on the ground. So this is where you at. You can also align your character to the ground, but never mind. I'm not really going for that right now. So here's your HB. And your character, okay, my character is gonna be looking for something. I finally learned how to draw, by the way, so yeah. Okay, I want this line of action in here. And you can check if your character is bigger than he was before. And you can adjust that in 2 simple clicks. And it's super handy because you don't have to go through all the frames and just fix your freaking character size. That's amazing. And I think that you all agree with me that this thing is absolutely amazing because it saves you so much time. Okay, just to make it more appealing that the character is actually looking for something. I'm gonna do that. Okay, I think the elbow is too big for this guy. And it also has to go something like that. There we go. Yep. There we go. So, this is A and B. You call this keyframes. Now, don't get me wrong. You just don't call every keyframe a keyframe. Those keyframes are called keys. And those are your main keyframes, right? So this is the most storytelling keyframes of all. And you have to understand that. So this is what he was doing before. This is what he's doing now. And you have to now fill in that time with what? Huh. Well, before you do anything, just set up the timing. So you have to set the timing so you understand if your character has enough time to travel from one direction to the other direction. You can count seconds. But I already have the time set. So somewhere about 60 frames. Now, don't panic. You don't really have to animate all these 60 frames. And this is why. That's because now we have to create a breakdown. What is a breakdown? A breakdown is a gap. A breakdown fills in the gap between keyframe, between 2 keyframes. Okay, let's just set this as a keyframe and this one as a keyframe as well. So it helps you to connect them together. You can also draw this guide. It's gonna help you. You can also enable these 2 things. Though I'm not sure how it's gonna work right now. It doesn't really work all the time, which is a pretty bad thing. I'm not gonna lie. God dang it. Never mind. It's not that big of a deal. So we can do that if you or needed to. You can copy this frame and put it in here. And after that, we can draw a guideline here, somewhere like this, so we have a precise size. It just helps sometimes. It really helps sometimes. Good. So now let's leave the character in here, and good as well. So here is this. Here's that. Okay, brought him back to life. So now we can draw his head in here. It's kind of pretty quick. It doesn't really have to be in the middle. It can be somewhere here. You can also exaggerate his stuff a little bit. So I think now he has to... Okay, as you can see now it's getting more expressive than it was. So this is why you should use pose to pose. Or you can make... if you don't like the pose, you can also remake it now. make him more grumpy. Like, to say that feel of the scene where he says, like, where the hell is that guy? Or, for example, something else you want. Remember me? Yeah, I do. How are your animations perfect? Yeah, I'm talking about this right now. I'm talking about this right now. So, you have to think about what you're doing first. Because else, it's gonna be a bit hard for you to be spontaneous sometimes. You just don't have to be spontaneous all the time. Being spontaneous is a skill that should be gained throughout the years of hard work. If you know what you're doing exactly, you're gonna lead yourself with something really cool. Okay, wait. I think this guy isn't really grumpy enough. You can also exaggerate that. So, you see, this is a breakdown. Not a mental one. So, this is a breakdown, you see? Does smear frames make it smoother? Or does it just slow down your work? Actually, smear frames are good when you're not using them too much. They're only good for big actions, like here and here, which have a big distance. So, if you want to shorten the time of this distance to show how fast is the object, you can use the squash and stretch. Well, you can cover squash and stretch into smear frame. That's a secret. And you can go here, here, and here, and then, okay, it basically, so you have to just go with something first. What you do is you slow in, and then it goes faster, 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 slower, 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 slower. And it turns out pretty nice. I don't really use smear frames because, well, I don't know. I sometimes use this sort of thing, but rarely actually. I can use this type of smear frame, so it creates a fake sense of motion, basically. So, like there are a lot of frames being played at one time, though it's not really working all the time. You don't really have to put these smear frames everywhere, or else your character is gonna look something like this. You can use for your head like that, and for your eyes here and here, and your mouth like this, and your hands probably you can do like that. It depends on what you're doing, and you can stretch your body like this. So, and your legs are being like here and here. So, yep. Just you can combine both, but it only works with very fast motion, and it also works with a very big distance. So S is distance, and T is time for somebody who doesn't know. So less the time, and so if time is smaller than the distance, equals use a smear frame. So the less the time is being used for achieving the for I don't know how to say that. So less time, if the less time is taking for an object to pass through some distance, the harder the smear frame should be, but also the timing should be a little bit more different, constructed a little bit more differently, because it depends on your objects. What is it called? Huh. Well, every object has its own velocity of speed. So at first it goes really slow, and then it raises up. So every object has its own velocity, and it really depends on what you're doing. If you have a car, then it depends on what car are you using. So it can be some old car. Then that means that its velocity is gonna be like that. If you have some sports car, then that means that its velocity is gonna go something like this, or something like this, I think, or something like that even. So, yep. But smear frames are good for big actions, once again. So this is called... Okay, let's get back. This is called an in-between, right? So, oh, I'm sorry. This is called a breakdown. We can also add extremes, which are more extreme breakdowns, to make to connect your movement even more smooth than it already is, and yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, it also depends on how wide or how big is your object. So it's not really gonna look that good if you're using a big object to travel some big distance. So the distance should be equal. The distance should be compared to the size of an object. If the object is really small like this, or a very thin object like that, you can add more smear frames. So yeah, that's the thing you want to do. You can also use the drag thing. To imitate this sort of a wonky effect for your character. Let's call it that way. So this is an extreme. This is a breakdown. This is a key. You can also add another extreme. You can also use a drag. And you can already see how expressive the character is. Now you have to set the timing. So you come up with something like this. And now you can look at your volume. And once again, just check it for clarity if you have any problems. And yeah, that's what is great for pose to pose, and like what other small animators use, which is straight ahead. And now you can go for in betweening. Though if you have still big gaps, you can use more extremes. It's gonna help you it's gonna help you with in betweening. And also, you can. It's also gonna help you with setting more precise expressions to your character. And after that, you can start in-betweening. I'm not really gonna do that right now, so I'm just gonna show you what is in-betweening. It's not really tweening, as somebody might think it is. It's just adding more frames to your animation, and also what you have to what you have to know when making an in-between is the action that your character is doing. You use pretty much smear frames in your turning pink meme. I didn't. Maybe that's because I can't draw normally, but let's see. Let's see. Oh, that's an animation meme. I'm sorry. Where is that turning pink? Oh yeah, I used some. I remember I used some for this big hand movement. It really kind of helps to imitate that. Okay, so some frames might be missing, but you still want to develop the amount of a handshake or of something that's going on. So if you want to develop the fast movement, you can also use the repeating smear frames. Basically, it's like this. So you know what I'm talking about, like that. It's gonna make us. It's gonna feel like there is more frames in your animation on that exact moment. Okay, I didn't use any smear frames while making the space dance hall movements. Didn't use any of smear frames while making this diamonds that splashes like a scene moments. Didn't use any of smear frames in here. Probably use here some. Yeah, I use some. But this is not really a smear frame. You know something in your camera that's called... Okay, there's a thing in your camera that's called rolling shutter. So basically it just scans your camera not like that. It scans your camera like this. So when you're making some fast motion, instead of making it look like this, it distorts it, makes it look like this, or like this. Or if something is spinning around, it's gonna make it look something like this, I think. I guess it's gonna look something like that. Yep. Oh yeah, it's gonna look something like this. So this is why I use this motion on this movement on a finger, like this warp. I just wanted to imitate that effect that the camera had. Okay, also animate on 2s, not on 3, not on 1s. That's gonna make your animation more productive in terms of speed. You're gonna make it more fast. Okay, also, there's a little mistake I made. So, if your character is about to move his arm somewhere there, you don't have to make it like this. It's not gonna look good. You probably can't see this right now. But I just made a big problem here. So, instead of that, I have to make the hand follow the secondary action.
And now it sort of flows. And also I can use this drag effect in here. It's just gonna really help me in here a lot. Like this one. Okay, and now we can see that it's actually flowing, right? You don't have to add a lot of actions when in betweening. It's not gonna help you or something. It's just gonna make it really, really fast and chaotic, and you don't want that. And this is why you should